So.
Recording in progress.
Now we have to say that.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, when you come up here, you say your thing, right? Videos.
Then you're covered.
Yeah, so you guys that don't have your videos on, what Sammy was just talking about is one of the requirements CE on Zoom is turn your cameras on. We know you're present, whatnot. And James will kind of introduce that process for him to stay compliant, because this is a CE credit. If you don't want the CE credit, do whatever you want. It's up to you. 1031 exchanges. I mean, this is a great talking point as agents, right? We need to know this shit, but we also need to have talking points with our clients. How many of you could just make a post to your SOI, your friends, your family that have investment property, that have a strategic plan for when they sell? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. They don't know what they don't know. So you as the professional need to bring up topics like this so that they can investigate, because the last thing we want is our clients to be saying, I wish somebody would have told me that. I already sold, or I did something before I had the process in, and now they're not eligible to do it. And that's what James is going to talk about, is all things 1031 exchange. I like what he was saying before we turn on Zoom. It's going to be kind of interactive. So questions that you have that about 1031 exchange, bring those up. So James, come on up right here. I'll sign out of the way and let you take it away.
Also, James,
Yes.
just really quick,
Yeah.
I've had a lot of sellers that are using 1031 exchange.
Yes.
Are you gonna go over the, like, from a seller's point of view and seeing those contracts? Or could you maybe like talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just to kind of understand it more?
You betcha.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is I've got a presentation that we're going to touch on a lot of that stuff.
Okay.
And so let me go through my stuff, and then any questions that I don't, ask me, and I'd love to go more deep into it. So, all right, I know the camera's right there. I apologize. I'm going to look down this way because
I can move this a little, make it look a little bit more natural.
I find when I'm on Zoom, I'm looking down, and then I look like, oh, I am looking down. So, okay, very good. Okay, guys, my name is James Roberts. I am with Security Home Mortgage. This is, you guys all know, Debbie right here. Okay, so some house cleaning items. This is CE, licensed CE for 2 hours of core for Utah. As those here that are live, we have a sign up form going around. You just need to make sure your name and license number are on that, and that you attend 90% of today's class, and you are good to go. For those that are on Zoom trying to get credit, Debbie, your email address, do they all know your email address?
They should.
Okay, let's just go really quick. It is
Dhart, so DHART.
Yep.
At shmloans.com.
So D Hart, in fact, let me write that here really quick. Oh, perfect. We'll put that in the chat. And so to get credit on Zoom, we are going to give 5 keywords today, and I'm going to give those throughout the class, and they're just going to be random. The only way you're going to know them is you got to listen, and you've got to get 4 of them right. We will let you get 1 wrong. You can still get credit, but if you miss more than that, I can't give you credit. So you'll email those 4 keywords to Debbie, along with your name and license number, and we'll get that taken care of. Thank you. That's perfect. All right. Okay. When are we doing lunch? Are we wanting to take a break during? Do we want to just bell
In the middle.
Okay. Because we do it 2 ways. We can take a break in the middle, or we can bust through. I can skip the breaks and we can be done at 12:40, and we can do lunch then. What would you guys prefer?
You can keep going. We don't need to stop for lunch.
Okay,
Those
perfect.
that are here in person. So if you've already brought it, I mean, obviously you guys can get up and grab a sandwich whenever you
I
want.
love
But okay.
Okay, nope, sounds good. All right. So today's topic is the 1031 exchange and real estate investing. This is one of my favorite classes to teach. I've been in real estate for over 20 years. I own over $4 million worth of real estate. I don't say this to brag, but I know what I'm talking about when we're talking investing in real estate. I've got enough cash flow coming in from my investments. I'm 47, that I could quit working today if I wanted to. Now I don't, because I have ADD and I would get bored. I go on trips and about 5 days I'm good. And I'm like, I want to get back. So this is what's fun for me. So I want to start today's class with a question. And this is a very fascinating question. And the question is now a good time to invest in real estate? Your friend comes to you and they say, hey, I've got $100,000. I've got some properties I want to, leverage. would you recommend, where would you recommend I put money? Okay, so think about it. You want to invest, guys, welcome, come on in. There is a sign-up sheet just right here if you guys can grab that. Okay, you have money to invest. Let's talk about where you can put your money. You've got the stock market. Where else do you have that you can invest money? Bitcoin, crypto, right? Good. Where else do you have? Businesses. Yep, very good. Mutual funds. There's unlimited, okay? And then the option, of course, that we want them is real estate, okay? What would you tell them? You've got this 150,000 sitting here. Somebody pipe up and tell me your thoughts.
Buy investment property.
Buy an investment property. What's your name?
Savvy.
Savvy?
Savvy.
Okay, very good. Why would you say that?
Because it's like a lifelong funds. You don't have to really, well, I guess you kind of have to worry about it.
Okay.
You know.
Good.
Rental income.
Okay. So I go to a realtor and I say, what should I do with my money? And they're going to tell me, buy real estate. I go to a barber. Well, I don't go to barbers, but if I had hair, I go to a barber and I say, hey, do I need a haircut? What are they going to say?
Yes.
They're going to say yes. And as a consumer, what am I going to think? Well, you're just saying that to earn a sale. Okay. So I want to have a little bit more of a talking point. Okay. So I love what you're saying. Okay. So you would tell them to buy real estate, but why? Okay. Because long-term investment, correct? Good. What else?
Leverage.
Leverage. Tell me more. Why is that so important?
Because with their $100,000 or whatever it was they had, they can, well, the example we always use is you can buy $100,000 worth of stock, or you can leverage that up by financing $1 million worth of property, maybe.
Yep.
And so you take advantage of that, the whole asset going up in value, creating cash flow. Plus, it's the best hedge against inflation that there is. So.
Okay, there's a lot of good things here in this. Okay, number one, I teach classes on investing. I have 10 rules on investing. One of my rules is I get asked the question, should I pay my real estate down? Okay, and my advice is always, you need to figure out what your goal is. Okay, for me, it's about cash flow. I need enough money to live on. So if I choose to or can't work ever again, guess what? I've got that income coming in. So my goal has always been to create enough, to buy enough properties using leverage. And then my goal was, once I get to that point, then I start paying them down. The problem is to that point, but I found this sweet house in Florida that I'm buying that I just went under contract with. And my brother found me a lot up in Bear Lake that now I'm like getting 2 more properties this year. Okay, so it's hard to sometimes limit yourself. But my advice is buy what you want with leverage, and then start using your extra cash flow to start paying that stuff down. Okay, so you mentioned leverage. What was you mentioned another point? There was another very important thing.
Hedge against inflation.
Hedge against inflation. What is he talking about? What's he talking about? How does real estate hedge against inflation?
Tends to go up with inflation.
Okay, my rentals. Go ahead.
You've got multiple avenues, right? You've got your cash flow, you have your depreciation, you have your appreciation, like you have multiple facets of the property that
Yeah.
are your hedge, right?
Yeah.
But more importantly, it's tied to the current spending value of the dollar. So I was just talking to Sydney about this before the class.
Yeah.
Like when I was in my early 20s, we're talking about what a millionaire means today
Yes.
versus what it did in
Uh-huh.
1990 or
Yeah.
before, whatever. It doesn't mean, that's not a worthy goal today, right?
Right.
Especially if that goal's 20 years out from now.
Yes.
So when I was in my early 20s, I realized that if I wanted $1 million for retirement, all I had to do was buy $1 million worth of real estate. Then,
Yep.
and time would take care of itself without all the other factors Dave's talking about. But the spending value, it's not going to be worth only $1 million. Then it's going to be worth what my current value of $1 million is worth in 1990
Yes.
equivalent.
Yep.
That's poor explanation, but
It's a
you
great.
get the point.
In 1990, that $1 million is going to be worth what? 5 million, 10 million?
Yeah,
You know?
somewhere between 5 and 10 for
Yep.
sure.
No, I love that. Okay, good. Also, my rentals, every time I have a tenant move out, what's my discussion with my property management company? How much, it's not if we're going to raise the rent, it's how much are we raising it? Every year, I'm getting at least $100 per unit coming out. Okay, good. Awesome. Okay, here's a fascinating thing. What's your name? Dave mentioned probably 4 things. Okay. Advantages to real estate. First of all, you have depreciation. Okay. What does depreciation cost me? Nothing. But what does it get me?
Deductions.
Deductions. Okay. It saves me on taxes. Okay. My depreciation this past year will save me $60,000 in taxes. Okay, in taxes. That's dollar for dollar. Okay, with what it's at. So pretty cool stuff, right? Okay, depreciation. You have appreciation as well. Okay, here's the fascinating thing with leveraging real estate. Okay, let's throw out 2020 and 2021. Okay, because the price is what happened. Crazy, 26.2% appreciation, right? Okay, but let's say you had bought a home back in 1990 or 1995. Okay, the 25 years before 2019, 2020, what was the average appreciation of a home? What? Just give me a guess. Best guess.
4.
I think it was
Good.
around 7.
3.9%. If you take, and this was multiple sources, of course, everybody could have a little bit, but multiple sources, the consensus is 3.9%. Okay, so you buy a house. Are you really getting 3.9% appreciation on your investments? Well, no, because you are leveraging it, right? And let's just use a simple calculation. A lot of people buy investment properties. Most people are putting 25% down. Now, if you buy do 5% down with conventional, whole different ballgame. But let's just talk investment, 25% down. You leverage that property. If you put 25% down, the bank supplies 75%. Are you getting only 25% appreciation? No, you get 100%. So that 3.9% now becomes what? 15.6%. Okay. So if you buy real estate and we throw out the great years, okay, now could we have a dip here in the next couple of years? Yeah, I don't think so, but it could happen. But if you don't get the depreciation, the cash flow from your rent, you get your equity because your tenants are paying down your mortgage. If you got none of that, you just broke even on that. What's your appreciation? 15.6%. Pretty cool, right? Okay. I didn't understand that until about 2 years ago. And I called my team together. I'm like, hey, look at this. This is just cool. Okay. So depreciation, appreciation, then you have cash flow, and that's the difference from, depending on, your payment. Now, if you find a property and all you do is break even, good deal or bad deal?
Good deal.
Can be a good deal depending on your goals.
Okay, good. Okay. I love this. Tell me more.
So if your goal is to have a long-term play and you don't need the cash flow, that's, again,
Yep.
taking advantage of the depreciation, the appreciation,
Yep.
and your tenants are paying down your mortgage and you're growing.
Yep. And you have a tenant an investor that's like, yeah, my cash flow is nothing, but what's going to happen next year? Yeah, my mortgage payment is going to stay the same, but
Rents will go
I've
up.
got a 3% appreciation built in my rent. And then the year after that, another 3%. One of my units I charged $1,350 for, just a few years ago, we were at $1,000. Okay. So it's insane when you put all that stuff together. Okay, good. Okay, let's talk about negatives of investing in real estate, because we can't be all shiny, rosy, because I had a client, and I'm a lender, I'm not a realtor, but he asked me in my advice back in 2005 to purchase a piece of an acre lot in Alpine. Okay. And what's my advice always been? I'm always going to be invest. I'm going to always tell you to invest. Okay. If you bought in 2006, 2007, and you were looking in 2011, 12, what would you say about that investment?
Awful.
Oh crap. That was the dumbest thing ever, right? And you're going to have clients that will call you up because, you could sell them a house today and who knows, 2 years from now, we could have a crash. Well, I'll talk about that in a second, but what are you going to tell them? Okay.
Long-term play.
Real estate is a long-term investment. I bought my house in 2006. Okay. I paid $475 for it. Did I buy high or low? Yeah, I bought at the highest time to that point. Okay. And then 2011, 12 hit and the homes were selling all around for about 300,000. Okay. But today, what do you guess my appraisal is? I just got it done on. 850,000.
Yeah.
850,000. Okay. So long-term, buying in 2006 was a really good play. Okay. I have people that think they can time the market. Who here can time the market?
Unless you got a crystal ball.
I had, guys, oh my gosh. I went to lunch with an agent. I still remember this. This was 2017. We're talking 5 years ago, 2017. She and her team were telling everybody they knew the market is at the top. You need to sell and go rent and we'll help you sell.
It's one way to get listings.
It's marketing right there. Wow.
Okay, good.
They got sued.
Yeah.
Right.
Guess
Realtors.
guess where that Asian is today? She is not on, she is not on any of the lists that I see. So she has left the industry. Okay. Because what would happen if you had told someone back in 2017 to sell?
No more referrals.
Yeah. I just had a client, he called me up last month and he's wanting to get a rental property. And I'm like, okay, good. You've got your current one, you've got your other one. Well, actually I sold that last year. And he's like,
Oh, knife right there, huh?
yeah.
Trust me, I'm still having heartburn.
Did you sell one too?
Two.
Yeah.
Worst idea ever.
Oh, it's so,
But here's what I learned, right? Like, we made money. It's a
Yep.
good deal. It's
Yes.
not a bad thing.
You didn't have crystal ball.
Well, so I didn't have a long enough picture,
yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
I look at it and I go, okay, now it's any property you have that you're holding, you gotta go at least 10 years or more.
Yep.
Right? And if
Yep.
it's part of the goal, then fine, but
It probably
You
solved the
can't do it.
temporary situation.
it did, right? Like, I mean, we walked away with a couple hundred and we paid off a bunch of debt and it was awesome.
Yep.
But I'm like, that was terrible. Because I could have had, much higher rents already, and I would have had, a couple hundred more per property.
Yeah.
Appreciation,
Yeah.
and that was 19.
Yep. Yeah, there's no way to know, right? So back to this lady, I mean, she was telling people to sell, okay? And then this was 2 years ago, so just before all the appreciation hit. There's this lady, she's a friend of my wife's, and she's very smart, very, very intelligent, talks politics, all this other stuff. But she called me up one day and it sounded like she was asking my advice, but she was just really telling me how the market was. And one of her comments was, yeah, I'm gonna wait to buy. They haven't bought a house yet because we're gonna wait for the market to drop. And then we're gonna swoop in and get a low price. Okay, right now, what's happening in the market? Are prices gonna drop anytime soon?
No.
Okay. Okay, what happened back in 2008, 2005, 6, and 7? What happened? Where was the inventory? 16,000 units. 16,000 homes were on the market. Okay, overbuilt? Extremely overbuilt. What was happening back then? Anybody in real estate back then? Okay, you had liar loans through the roof. You had investors getting in because what were they doing? They were buying homes and then selling them 6 months later for a $50,000 profit, which works great as long as the market keeps going up. But as soon as everybody gets scared, everybody pulls out and then the bottom drops out. Okay. So what happened back then was all these builders were building homes like crazy. Investors were ordering these homes and then the bottom dropped out. A lot of builders got burned, and what did they do? They went bankrupt, lost everything that they had. So a lot of builders left the industry. Okay. And this is really fascinating. I was actually listening to David Luna with Mortgage Educators. Anybody know who he is? But this is his theory. And I'm like, this makes a lot of sense. And that is, since 2008, we have not been building enough homes to keep up with the demand. Here in Utah, what do we have? We have large families. We have the largest family per number of kids per family. And we have a lot of people moving in. Silicon Slopes area, businesses moving in. So we have never, since 2008, 2009, been able to keep, had enough homes. And then we kind of hit a point probably 2 or 3 years ago where the inventory, finally, the people moving in finally caught up to the inventory. And now we've been in a deficit, which you've seen now in these last 2 years. Kind of crazy, right? Is that going to change anytime soon?
You can't change that fast.
Yeah, supply, they cannot build fast enough. They cannot get materials fast enough. So I think our job security is actually really, well, a good real estate agent always has job security. It's the question is that bottom half, are they going to have that job security? But anyway, somebody asked me where I think the market's going. Yeah, I mean, it cannot keep going like it has the last 2 years. I mean, eventually you're going to run out of, we're already pricing people out of the market. Here's just a side note. Starter home now, what, 450,000? About right? Okay, I just ran these numbers yesterday. What's that?
I was gonna say 450 to 5.
Yeah, 450,000. Someone has no debt. What is the minimum amount of money they need to make each hour? Minimum hourly rate to qualify for a $450,000 home, 5% down, no debt, assuming they have no other debt, no car loans, no credit card debt. How much do they need to make?
24?
Okay, 32.
30, yeah, 30.
It's $32 an hour. Yep, it's $32 an hour. So what does that take? That takes two. It's really, you know, a couple of years ago, it really became a two household income. Okay, or somebody making a good, you know, six-figure income. So, you know, two 16-year-olds, sorry, two $16 an hour, not 16. Two $16 an hour can buy that start, can buy the bottom home.
Probably that's not that much better for renters either. 2-bedroom apartments are going 16, 18 a month.
Yep.
That's insane.
Sucks for renters. Sorry, great for people at home rentals.
But it is.
Yeah.
When you look at the rentals too, and it's like, so we just bought another property and the rent on it's $2,400.
Yep.
It's a 3-bed, 1-bath house. And I'm looking at this going, how is this even possible for you? Like, you know, looking at qualifications and stuff, and they've got to bring somebody else in, and I'm like, do what you gotta do, but like, and then you go to, if you're going traditional and you say first month, last month, and a deposit, you're almost $7,000 to $10,000 for your first month of rent. Like insane.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It's crazy
And the
times.
sad part about that is there's not very many people that have no debt.
Right.
With that example.
Very little.
Especially for the last 2 years.
Yes. Car loans, credit card debt. Yeah, you have to, I mean, it's really 70,000 is kind of the minimum to get into a home nowadays. You know, this, you're gonna have a car payment, some student loans, some credit card debt. So good times, right?
Well, maybe, I mean, you wonder where it's gonna go from here.
Solar financing.
Okay.
I moved to Ohio.
You know what? I used to think that we're still, because wages are going up. Wages are going up. I mean, I'm dealing with lots of people nowadays that are coming in with 6-figure incomes. Okay, where before it wasn't, I mean, it was, so wages have had to go up. So, and I am looking at my organization. It's like, even my lower end people, I'm thinking ahead. I've got 60 employees. How do we get them to 100,000? I need my lower employees really making 100,000 within a 2 to 3 year period. Because I think I just think that's where it's all headed.
Well, can I mention too, like just getting in the game too. So where I have home buyers coming in and they qualify for a loan now and they're frustrated because they can't find anything with their agent. And so I've learned so much about investing from James over this last year that we just come up with strategic solutions for them. Just get in the game. So get someone to co-buy this condo or this townhome with, like just get started. Use the, build equity for a year, turn it into investment property. You can get investment partners. So you can have up to 4 people or 4 couples on a loan buying an investment property together, growing the equity that way. Just get in the game. So just have them talk to a lender that knows all of these different options. Sorry, just wanted
I'm glad
to
you
shoot
did.
that in there too, because it's not just about getting wages up. There are other strategies to just like, don't be defeated with them if they can't get into the game right now on their own. There are a lot of ways. If they can't find a co-signer per se, then they can find a partner. If you're gonna be someone who's 25 renting with another roommate anyway, you might as well own it together and be building your equity together, and then at least you're in the game. And at that 1 year time, then you can turn that into investment property. You go buy, if you have enough equity and enough income by then, go buy your separate primary residences at that point in time. So we don't ever say no to people. We're just like, maybe not the way you want, or maybe not right now, but here we're always going to find them a strategic solution to get them.
That's it, right? They just need the right advice. They don't know how am I going to pull this off? Well, they just need to talk to the right mentor or the right loan officer or the right professional that's giving them good advice. Because they can look back and say, oh, I should have 2 years ago, but I guarantee 2 years ago, they're saying, this is expensive. I'm not, how can I get into this? They're going to be saying that in 2 more years. So if you can get them in that mindset of what he was talking about, locking in that payment for 30 years, even though it seems like a stretch right now, like you should see the house Sydney and Mitch are building right now. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. It's in Draper, but a year ago, they realized they're going to get priced out of Draper if they don't buy a lot now. And it was like, I can't believe we're spending this much money. And now they're like,
You
nailed it.
That'll be done. That'll be much like way more positive.
Yeah, they already have well over 200,000.
Yeah, easy.
Well, it's even if they're looking at it going like, well, we don't have the credit to get into it. Maybe they need to be with the right lenders that's got the right credit specialists, and they're maybe only 6 months away from doing it.
Yep.
Get a strategy.
I helped several people in 2019 buy homes with no money down. We did Utah Housing. Had they been listening to Dave Ramsey? I hate Dave Ramsey, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay, they'd still be, but you know what? I helped them buy in 2019. Guess what we were doing in 2021? We were refinancing them. We were getting rid of the mortgage insurance. And I was dropping their payment $400.
I've even got a Utah housing person right now. She's still got her offer accepted and we're still gonna get this still going for her. So she's in the game.
Yes. Okay, good. I want to go down this one just a little bit more, really quick. Sometimes as agents, we think, hey, they have no cash. It's not going to be worth my time. We are getting Utah housing offers accepted. Okay, but that's no money down. Okay. So don't think, I had an agent call me up, this was last year. It's like, James, I can't get any of my buyers' offers accepted unless they have cash. It's just cash is taken over. And so I did some research. Okay, what % of homes are being sold straight cash? What would you guess? Give me a guess.
Maybe half.
17%. It's only 17%. According to this agent, it felt like 98% were, going cash. Okay, 17% are going cash. Okay, what % are going conventional? Good. 65%. 65% are going conventional. FHA? 10%. 10% is going FHA, and then kind of a mix of the rest. So I'll have some agents that are like, hey, we can't do an FHA offer because it's not going to get accepted. The reality is you still can get it accepted, but if it says FHA or VA, what's going to happen with the seller's agent? Unfortunately, you're probably going to get put the last place. So then agents will come and say, hey, write an offer on conventional, and then we'll switch it. That's an ethics thing, and that's a topic for another day. So anyway, but my whole point there is your buyers still can get homes under contract. Okay.
But she was able to use, because she's Utah housing, she was able to use the funds that we were able to source to cover the legal gap. So we can talk to them about that.
Which
We have
fortunately is.
different options to help them with. The
Yes.
things that are coming up in the market. now.
Good.
I got one accepted last year, September of last year, in fact, like right at the end of the big boom. But we actually ended up going in under appraisal just because we asked to be a backup offer. And then that offer fell through, and who do they go to? Their backup.
Yes. Yep.
It doesn't hurt to ask.
Yep. And that's a strategy because a lot of buyers are putting out 3 offers at the same time. And or I've had cases where they get this one under contract, but they really want this other one. And if they get this one, then they're backing out on due diligence or something. So great thought there. Don't be scared. Don't be scared to get in as a second option. Okay. Let's keep going. I want to hit one more thing and then we'll jump into the taxes. Okay, we talked about positives. I mean, I could sit here and I can give you an hour-long presentation why you should buy real estate. Okay, but there are negatives. Okay, what are some of the negatives out there? And I want some people on chat. Can we hear the chat? Or sorry, not chat, but on Zoom.
Yeah, they just have to unmute themselves.
Unmute yourself. I want you guys to pop up. I want to talk about negatives. Negatives of real estate. Tenants. What can tenants do? Destroy properties. Good. Okay. I have a third section to this class where we actually talk about that. I never get into it because I always like to talk about other stuff. But if we have time, I want to talk about, things that we can do to mitigate that. Good. What else?
I actually have one.
Yes, let's hear it.
I got out of renting during COVID because the tenants all were applying with animals in my animal free. And we're saying they were emotional support animals or lying about it to get into the rental. And I had someone that actually had a criminal background, a long story short, but I canceled everything because of that. And he came back and harassed me for weeks saying he was going to sue me because he had an emotional support animal and I had to get a lawyer involved to make him stop. So I was like, peace, I'm out.
Okay. Is this Brianna? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, you have these issues that you got discrimination. You've got animals. What other issues do you have to run into?
They don't pay the rent.
They don't pay their rent. Okay, good. Okay, very good. So one of the things that I advise, and every one of these, in fact, if we have time, I'll talk about them, but I've got talking points on what you can do to mitigate all of those. Number one thing, you get into investing, you do not get in and you invest every little dollar you have and you scrape to get in. We call it a SWAN account, also known as a rainy day fund. But swans sleep well at night. You got to have money to withstand some of these issues. I also recommend getting a property management company just for, my tenants don't even know who I am. I don't even know who they are. And for that reason, no tenant will ever call me and harass me. That's why I'll have those, but you know, I could go deep on that one. I'm going to set that one to the side. So I want you to just know that there are some risks involved. So as you're talking with clients, you know, be aware of those. My brother had a house and it actually made the news. It had 13, it was either 13 in the household with 11 kids or 13 kids. Okay. And those suckers paid 3 payments in a 12-month period. And this was during COVID and he could not evict him. Okay. And he knew that they were getting all these payments from the government, but none of them were coming his way. They actually, but you know, fortunately, my brother had a Swan account, rainy day fund, so he was able to make it pass. But they actually did him a favor. Why? By not able to evict him, was he making more in appreciation than what he was losing in rent? You better believe it. He sold that house for another 100,000. He ended up selling that house. Okay, so there's things to mitigate. Okay, very good. Let's get into what we came here for. Let's talk about taxes. All right. I go work at McDonald's. I earn an hourly wage. Okay. I graduate college as an engineer. I go get my first job and I'm paid a yearly salary. Okay. I get my real estate license. I sell a home. I earn a commission. I purchase some real estate and then I sell it. I earn. Oh, good job. First time. Usually I have to pull that out. Okay, good job. So the thing that we're here to talk about is capital gains. All right. That is the profit that you make on a house. So let's talk about how do you calculate the capital gains. All right. So first of all, I have a house that I bought for 300,000. Okay, y'all pull out your calculators or whatever. This is simple math. You can do it now. Bought the house for 300,000. I have a $200,000 mortgage on the property and I sell it for 400,000. Okay, so I'm going to take home $200,000 cash. And I'm keeping this simple. I mean, we could talk about realty fees and title. We're not. I'm just keeping it simple. Okay. Bought the house for 300,000. Have a $200,000 mortgage. I sell it for 400,000. I take home $200,000. What are my capital gains? You guys are good.
20%.
Nope.
Or is it 100?
100.
The cost basis for what we
Yep.
set up for.
Now, the reason I put the mortgage in here is because the mortgage has absolutely nothing to do with your capital gains. And so I'll have people, okay, well, I'm getting $200,000, so shouldn't I have 200,000 in gains? No, okay, it's all based on, the simple answer is how you calculate your capital gains is your sales price minus your purchase price. I wish it was that simple, but that's where we'll start, okay? Sales price minus your purchase price, technically that's your capital gains, but we're also dealing with a couple other things, and those are depreciation and improvements. Okay, let's talk about depreciation. Okay, so I'm going to keep my numbers just simple. They're not going to make sense, but they're just simple numbers. Okay, I buy a home for 100,000, and let's say I depreciate it for 3 years at $5,000. Now I know that's not your 29 whatever. It's just I'm just using it for easy numbers. Okay, 100,000 I buy it for, but I depreciate 5,000 off for 3 years. So I've taken 15,000 off. So this makes my basis. And basis is a keyword. In fact, that's going to be our first keyword for today. Can you write these down? Okay, basis is our keyword.
And mention what you mean by that. I don't
Yep.
know what's going on.
Okay, so to really calculate, so yeah, basis again is your first keyword for today. You guys that are here don't have to worry about it. Those that are on Zoom, again, make sure Debbie's email is in there. You need to email Debbie for, I'm looking down, I should be looking there. Okay, for the 5 keywords for credit today. Okay, so the true way to calculate your capital gains is really your sales price minus your basis. So sales minus your basis. All right. How do we get our basis? Well, we start with our purchase price. And do we subtract or do we add to it? Okay, we actually subtract the depreciation. Yep. Oh,
That's all right.
you guys just put your cameras to the thing and then look at it from your camera, and then you got a double mirror going. So purchase price minus your depreciation. I'm just going to that plus your improvements. Guys, my mom was a school teacher for years and years. She had perfect handwriting. I got none of that from her, okay? I've had people say, hey, James, you need to learn how to spell. Guys, my spelling is perfect. It's just you may not be able to see that S or that E or whatever, so. All right, so you're gonna take your purchase price minus your depreciation. Okay, so for instance, I buy the house for 100,000. I depreciate it for 3 years at 5,000 each year. That means I've taken 15,000 off. What does that do to my 100,000? It now makes that 85,000. So if I sell that home for 200,000, if I didn't do any depreciation, it would be 200,000 minus 100,000, right? And then I'd have 100,000 in gains that I'd pay taxes on. But if I depreciate it, then you have what's called depreciation recapture. And so I've got to add that back in. And so now I'm paying capital gains on 115,000. Okay, makes sense? I'm keeping this all simple. Sometimes people will ask other questions. I want to kind of keep this at a simple level today. Okay. And then the other thing is improvements. What do I mean when I say improvements?
Another room to the basement.
Good.
Yeah, any improvements made to the house.
Okay, good. You have expenses and you have improvements. Now, as a real estate agent, do you need to know these accounting terms? You're not required to know them. And in fact, it's advised that you say, go talk to your accountant. However, I would want my agents know this stuff, at least know a basic, because it drives me nuts when I'm talking with a professional and they'll be like, oh, I can't tell you that. Go talk to your accountant. And it's just something simple that they should know within their things. So
Give me a hint.
yes, yeah, I don't want to go do all that work if you can just tell me this little thing. Okay. So improvements are, just like James said, you add on to your house, you create a new wing, you finish a basement, a new roof can be considered an improvement. Okay. And then you have expenses. Expenses are simply repairs. There's a hole in the wall, you fix that, pay $100 for it, whatever, that's an expense. Okay. The difference is when you write them off. Expenses you're going to write off in the year that they were accrued. Improvements, however, I go put $100,000 wing onto my house, actually room nowadays, not a wing, a room. Can I write $100,000 off? The answer is no. It becomes an improvement. Now there's cost segregation. I'm not going to get into that today. I'm just going to keep it at a simple level. Improvements you have to add to the price, your basis, and then you can subtract it when you sell that house. Okay, make sense? Okay. All right, so sales price minus your basis equals your capital gains, and then that's what you pay on. Okay, now, then the next thing you need to know is the difference between long-term assets and short-term assets. What's the difference between a long-term asset and a short-term asset? And why is it important that an agent knows this difference?
Tax rate is different.
Yes.
1 year.
Yes, good job. Thank you. Yes, it's 1 year. The difference on a short-term versus a long-term asset is 1 year. Okay, if you've held on to it longer than a year before selling, it's considered a long-term asset. If it's less than a year, it's considered a short-term asset. And the difference is how they are taxed. Highest tax bracket in America right now is what? Federal? What percent? 37%. Okay, highest tax bracket is 37%. Capital gains, so an asset held less than a year is taxed at the normal tax rate, which on higher net worth, higher income individuals is taxed up to 37% plus your 5% for Utah, 15% if you're in California. You can be paying easily half of your income in taxes. Okay, a long term becomes a capital gain. And what's the highest capital gains rate right now? As long as Congress doesn't change it, 20%. 20%. So there's a big difference if I sell before the year or after. So a client comes to me at 10, I'm an agent, comes to me at the 10-year mark and says, hey, I want to sell this house. I'm not going to do a 1031. I'm just going to pay taxes. And you go and you hurry and sell it. And you end up closing at the 11 months and 3 weeks mark. Okay. And this is a higher income individual. What just happened to their tax bracket? Their taxes don't know. We just paid their taxes. So it's really important that you know that and just be aware of that, because a good agent would say, yes, let's get this thing sold, but let's make sure we don't close until 1 year and 1 day. All right. Okay. That's important to know that. All right. Now let's talk again, before I get into the 1031, there's another thing I want to talk about, and that is the primary exclusion. All right. Most agents know the primary exclusion, but I'm going to go probably a little bit deeper, and usually there's a few things I want to talk about. Okay, everybody knows you've lived in the home as your primary residence. What's the definition of a primary residence?
Living.
You're there for more than.
80%?
6 months and 1 day.
That's right.
Okay.
6 months and 1 day. This is your primary, the home that you live in the most.
The
Okay?
secondary is what, 3 months?
That's a good question there. Second home is actually,
I don't even think you have to do that.
there's not a minimum. Yeah, yeah, but there's a, yeah. I'm not gonna go down that one if we have some time after. Okay, because I could talk for 5 minutes on that one. Okay, back to this primary exclusion. If you live in the home 2 of the last 5 years as your primary residence, you can exclude up to how much? In capital.
250 individual.
200. 250,000 as an individual, 500,000 as a couple. Okay. Let's start with this individual. Okay. Now let's say you've got 3 individuals. This was a question I got 2 classes ago. You have 3 single people living in the house. They all own the house. Does that mean they can all exclude 250,000? So you can technically get up to 750,000? No, it's if they're single, the maximum exclusion is 250. What if you do have 2 separate individuals that own it? How do you divide that up? Go talk to your accountants. Yeah, go work that up. So yeah, talk to your accountant. Okay. Do you have to both own the home and live in it to 2 of the last 5 years? Or is it just make sure you've lived in it? For example, true story, client comes to me, they've been renting the house for 3 years. They've been living in it for 3 years as a tenant. They've worked out a deal with the landlord where they're buying the house. I help them buy the house. A year later, they come back and say, hey, we've got some pretty good equity in this property. We want to sell it. Okay. We've lived in it for 4 years. We've only lived in it. Sorry, lived in it for 4 years. We've only owned it for 1 year. Are they eligible for the primary exclusion? I don't think so. I've got to know. That is correct. They have to both owned it and lived in it for 2 of the last 5 years. Yeah.
So they just have to live in it for another year before they stop.
Yep. Yep. Okay. Another true story. I had an agent come to. Oh. Okay. Very good. Yeah. If someone wants, I'm horrible about watching chats. So if someone could keep an eye on that for me, I'd appreciate that. Okay. Are there any questions I need to address? Anybody have any questions before I keep going on this one that on the old stuff? Everybody good? Okay. All right. So true story, agent comes to me, client I had helped buy a year and 10 months ago. Hey, they're wanting to sell their house. Okay. Go hurry and make sure they're pre-approved. I want to get this home on the market ASAP. Okay. What was my advice to the agent? That's great. Get it in, get it on the market, but you make sure that closing doesn't happen until 2 years and 1 day after. Okay. All right. Does it have to be concurrent? Sorry, does it have to be consecutive or can it be cumulative? Meaning I move into the home, I live in it for a year, and then I go rent it out for a couple of years, move back east for a job, and then I come back, I move into it for another year. Cumulative? Any consecutive guesses, or everybody wants to go with cumulative?
Sounds like it'd be cumulative.
You guys are correct.
It's just 2 of the previous one.
Yep, it's cumulative. It can be 6 months here, 8 months there, whatever. Okay, okay, cumulative. Okay. Now, the next question is military. You have a military, buys the home, but then they're deployed 6 months later. So they are now deployed for a year. They come back and they live in it. They live in it for another 6 months. So they've lived in it for 6 months, deployed for a year, come back, live in it for another 6 months. So they now owned it for 2 years, but they've only lived in it for 1 year. What do you think?
There's a clause.
That's covered.
Oh.
I think it's USERRA Act,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the act is, but
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's USERRA Act, but yeah, that covers the soldier that is deployed under that act. They are now.
they are eligible. Okay,
Still
so
considered their primary residence.
it is their primary residence. Okay, very good. Okay, how often can? Yep. Yeah. Heck yeah, they better be able to, right? They're out fighting.
Serious.
So I can sit here in my nice, comfortable home. So yeah, they better be.
And the reason is you don't actually change your home of record. Your home of record still stays the same.
Yep.
It's still primary residence. You're just simply not physically there.
Yep.
For all intents and purposes.
Could they rent it out though?
Sure.
Yeah. As far as under VA, if it was a VA loan, can you rent it out?
Yep.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so just real quick on that, any loan outside of Utah housing, their rule is you have to, when you buy a home as a primary residence, you have to occupy within 60 days, you have to intend to live in it for a year. Okay, so you would have satisfied, I mean, you moved in for 6 months with the intent to own or occupy it, you get some orders to move out, you've satisfied that. Pop a renter in there. Okay. Yep. How are we on time? It never fails. I like to talk and then I'm at the end, I'm just.
This is a 3-hour CE class is what they
We
say.
just made this 3 hours. At the end, I'm like, okay, no more questions. Let's get to the points. But this is the way this is fun for me. I like this. Okay, so primary residence, the last question I had on that is, how often can you take the primary exclusion? Is it one time? Is it every 2 years? Is it every 5 years? What do you guys think? Guesses? Thoughts? He looks pretty confident over there. Is it every 2 years? You guys sure? That is correct. 100%. Okay. You can do this every 2 years. Anybody have any builder friends or are builders? What do? They build a home and then they move into it. And then a year and a half later, they're digging ground. So when they hit that 2-year mark, 6 months later, they sell that house tax-free and then move into their other house. Okay, so you can do that every 2 years. Okay. So that's we've talked about the single. Let's talk about the couple. Now let's say there's more than 250,000 in capital gains, and then if they first of all they've got to be married filing joint. Okay, not just married, but they got to file jointly, right? Do they both have to have lived in the home 2 of the last 5 years? But do they both have to have been on title? What do you think?
I would say yes if the rules they follow.
Okay, good. The rule is actually only one has to be on title, as long as one's on title. All right? Yep. Okay. Now, let's say a spouse dies, unfortunately. Okay. Spouse dies, and the surviving spouse wants to sell the property, and there's more than 250,000 in gains. Are they hosts and you're going to have to pay taxes on anything above the 250,000, or what do you think?
It's within the same year.
Okay. It's either a year or 2. You have a year or 2 years. And one of these days, I'm going to look it up because I always just keep saying in my class, it's 1 or 2 years. I'm going to look it up and then I'll teach the next class. But if you do it within 1 year, I know you're for sure safe. Okay, so they have a time period to sell that property. Okay, and then they cannot have excluded another property, like one of the individuals cannot have sold another one that they moved out of within that 2-year period. Make sense? Okay. All right.
One more thing, I have a client who moved out to Vernal, and then the job didn't pan out, so coming back 6 months later.
Yep.
And there's another exclusion, they're gonna be able to get some reduction on that.
Okay, that's a good question. That's a good point there. There is a prorated amount. So if it's if they haven't lived in it for the full 2 years, but it's because of a job change, then they can get a prorated amount. And that's all the farther I'm going to go today. Talk to your accountants on that one. Okay, good. Okay, very good. Okay, second keyword for today is primary. Second keyword, you guys here don't have to worry about this. Those on Zoom chat, do the primary. Okay, let's keep going. Let's any other questions on the primary exclusion? This is important for agents to know. Everybody good here? Okay. Again, it's primary homes only. I have actually had some agents tell my clients that they cannot. Go ahead.
Question.
Oh, lost it. Okay. So if I lived in my home, primary home for 17 years, okay. Bought another home as my primary. Okay. That's it. Sorry. Yep. So if I lived in my home, my primary home for 17 years, bought another home as my primary and made my house of 17 years of rental, it has now become a rental for about 18 months. Could I still sell it as owner occupied? Well, you're going to sell it as an investor, but you remember you've got 3 years to sell the property. Okay. As long as you haven't done any other exclusions in that 2-year period, as long as you sell that within 3 years, doesn't matter if you've lived in it for 2 years, 15 years, 50 years, you've got 3 years to sell it because you still qualify for the 2 years, 2 out of the last 5 years. Okay. If you sell it 3 years and 1 day later, you're out of the exclusion. So great question there.
Hey, can I just make a point on
Please.
that? This is a tremendous talking point when you go on listing appointments, because most homeowners don't understand this. And they think they have to sell instead of, to buy the next one. I've got a client right now that I talked out of selling his house because he didn't really know what he didn't know. And so when we had that conversation, turned it into a rental. He bought another house in Lehigh, kept the one in Eagle Mountain. What do you think that's done over the last 3 years? Does he love me? Yeah. But he rented it annual basis 3 times. So that 3rd year, he didn't want to kick that tenant out the 3-year mark. So his exclusion would have expired because he had been gone for more than 3 years. So when he didn't renew to the tenant, he moved back in. So he can get that cumulative time of 2 years. So he'll readjust his 2 of the previous 5 and then has more choices.
Yep.
And then
Options.
renting out the second one.
Right. That was his whole premise. He's like, oh, I want to move into a smaller house so I can save some money to buy a rental. I'm like, you already have a rental. So the conversation as a realtor on talking to somebody about not selling their house on a listing appointment, good thing.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. Yep, great point there. Okay. Any other questions on the primary exclusion before we move on? Okay, very good. Let's talk 1031 exchange. All right, so somebody racer is right there, right in front of me. Okay, somebody give me the definition of a 1031 exchange. Okay, so let's go a little bit even more basic. Someone that doesn't know what it is, it's a way that we we sell real estate, and instead of paying capital gains or taxes on the capital gains, we
Kick the can down the road.
Yep, we defer. Yep. It's a way, and then we have to buy real estate. Okay, good. Let's talk about all those things that we know. Okay, so first of all, okay, so defer like for like.
Or to go into contract.
Identification is 45. And closing is 180.
Okay.
He'll cover that.
So we have time periods. And I'm glad we're here today, okay? Because there's no 60 days in this, okay?
I'm just making stuff up. I just want to make sure you were paying attention.
Make sure I know what I'm talking about, right? You're testing me. Okay, so time periods.
Is this guy legit? Let's throw some numbers in. To close on.
Yep.
Right.
Although I'm going to argue there is not 6 months. It's a different term.
180 days, right.
Identification and purchase. Okay, good. What I want to do right now is I want everybody to start spitting out what you know. There's about between 10 and 15 talking points I want to go. I want to just list all these, and then I'm going to go over them individually in detail. Go.
That's what I know.
Good. Okay, good. What kind of properties? We talked about like for like, but also it has to be held for what type of purposes? Investment for investment. I have another agent tell my client that their primary residence is eligible for a 1031 and shoot him. It's like, but my agent said, no, it doesn't matter. Okay. Investment for investment. And I'm going to put in here second homes. Because a second home, vacation home can possibly be eligible. If I get time, I'll talk about that. Okay, good. What else do we know about it?
You can use it for residential or commercial.
Okay, good.
It's not what you want to write down though, huh?
Yep. No, that's good. That's good. That's good. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a really
That is a
good
good
point.
point.
It's a
You
really
have a
good point.
timeline?
Yep.
Oh, you put time periods.
Yep,
sorry,
got time
it's
periods. Good. What?
That's a
I
good
can't
point
read
though, because people misunderstand like for like.
So I'm gonna put here commercial, residential, agriculture. Yep.
not- Oh, agriculture.
Yeah. Okay, good.
It's not like.
It just has to be
you're
real
not
estate.
paying taxes, it's just you're deferring the taxes.
Yep. Can you sell a business and use a 1031?
Yeah,
If it was an.
it's an investment.
Only the real estate portion.
Okay.
So the business,
Not the business, but the
Yeah.
whatever it's called in.
the real estate itself, you can 1031, but anything you're getting for your clients, your whatever else, not real estate is not 1031able. Okay, good. Okay. There are 2 entities that cannot do 1031s, or sorry, 2 types of real estate. And those are, first of all, I'm going to give you Ivory, Arrive, Woodside. What are these guys? Builders. Can a builder sell a home they built and do it as a 1031? The answer is no. Okay. So builders, and there's one other type that's not eligible. It's a 4-letter word. It starts with an F. Okay, builders and flips, not eligible. Good, let's keep going.
Why would it?
We'll talk about that. Yep, I'm gonna go into that in detail. Great question. Good. What else? What else do we know about these? We got time periods here, but how often should you buy a property, can you just turn around and sell it right away? Okay, that would be a flip, but how long should we recommend? Okay, so I'm gonna put in here minimum time. And again, I'm just gonna write these down and then I'm gonna go into these in detail. So minimum time to own. Okay. I'm gonna put up here entity. So same entity that sells needs to what? Needs to be to buy. Okay. I got some stories on that one. Okay, what else? If I sell something for 500,000, what do I need to buy? Yep. Okay. And I'm going to talk about that as well because you don't necessarily have to, but there's some caveats. Buy equal to or greater.
Because you could buy multiple.
Yes. Okay. And sell. Okay. Multiple to 1 and vice versa.
Is there a proration if you don't hit that amount?
Yes. It's called boot. Okay, good. What else? What else? Okay. Safety. Think safety. We're going to talk about that. If you do a 1031, do you hold on to your money? Okay. And so we're going to put don't touch the money. Okay. Good. Let's go ahead and give the third keyword real quick. Third keyword today is 1031. Third of 5 is 1031. Okay. Can you guys think of any other key points? We've got deferred, like for like, investment for investment, time periods, identification, purchase, commercial.
Just remind them that they need the email for.
Yep. And so Debbie, again, it's D Hart. D is in Debbie, HART at shmloans.com. You could also send it to securityhomemortgage.com or shmcorp.com. Those will work as well. As long as you got the D Hart in there. Okay, very good. And there I am looking down to get it. Then I'm gonna look like I'm looking straight down. Okay, let's jump into this. Okay, let's start with this, guys. Investment for investment. Property must be held for investment purposes. If you're moving out of a primary residence or if you're buying a primary residence, it is not eligible for a 1031. Well, if you've lived in the home 2 of the last 5 years, you've lived in it for 2 years, you've rented out for the last 3 years, could it be eligible for a 1031? Absolutely, because it's an investment. Yeah, qualifies for both. But if you could do one or the other, which one are you going to do? Which one?
Depends on the case.
It's actually clear, black and white. It's you want to take the primary exclusion. Okay, because a 1031, you are going to defer the taxes. The primary is wipes away. You're done. Okay. Yep. You're not going to. Okay. So anytime you sell real estate, you're going to have capital gains. If it's a primary exclusion, you can exclude up to 250,000, single 500,000 as a couple, or if you do a 1031, you're going to defer those taxes. Is there a way? Now, the nice thing. This is really nice about real estate, and that is, when do you pay taxes? You don't pay taxes until you sell a property. Okay, so that property can appreciate tax-free year at year, and you'll never pay taxes until what happens? You sell it. Okay. Is there a way, not using the primary exclusion, not doing a 1031, that you can sell a property and still not pay any taxes and have significant appreciation or equity?
Not sell?
Yep. No, sell.
Oh, sell.
How can you sell it? How can you sell the property and not pay the government any taxes? Do the primary exclusion. There's one way.
Inherited.
Yep. You got to die.
You gotta know. So you can't sell it, but your heirs can.
Heirs. Let's talk about that really quick because this comes up.
You
Okay.
can adopt me, Jeff.
I buy a house for $100,000 many years ago, whatever. Okay. I depreciate it down to 0. My basis is what? 0. Okay, I sell it for $500,000. My capital gains are 500,000 on the property, okay, because I sell it for 500,000, which is what it's worth. I die the day before I sell the property. Okay, oh, so let me give you two scenarios. I die the day after I sell the property. Okay, what happens? My estate has a $500,000 capital gains, okay, that we got to pay, the percentage of taxes on. But let's say I die the month before I sell it, okay? Now, for me to sell it, my basis is 0. But what happens when my heirs inherit it? The basis becomes whatever the fair market value is, okay? And they then sell it at fair market value. What's their taxes? Not 0, okay? So there you go, guys. We just gave you the secret to selling your real estate and pay no taxes. Just go down.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Okay, so this is actually a situation I'm in. I just did the 2-year capital gains write-off for my taxes for a property I sold last year, a property I've had for 2 years, and I'm going to now claim as my primary residence moving forward. Well, if the market's really great, maybe I'll sell that one this year. So do I not get to write off the 2-year primary residence capital gains on that one?
Okay, so let's back up a second. So we're talking about property A, we're going to call it, okay? When did you acquire the property?
Oh, like 10 years ago.
Okay, and then you lived in it for how long? Was it your primary at
2 out of
first,
the
or was
5
it-
last years. So 2 out
Okay,
of the
you've
last
lived
5
in it.
years.
Okay, but you don't live in it currently, correct?
Nope, I'm moving into my new primary residence.
Okay, and then your question is on this. Okay, so property B is going to be your new primary residence. Okay.
Yep.
So property A, you're asking is if you sell it, is that your question?
No, I sold it and I
Okay.
claimed the 500,000, the tax write-off for that
Good
because I'm
job.
married. And
The primary
then,
exclusion. Yep.
yep. And then my new primary residence, if I sell it, and I've owned it for more than 2 years currently, if I sell this home this year, do I get to claim that again, or do I have to wait 2 years, or is it based on the length of the property that I've owned?
Well, it's both. You can't exclude more than once every 2 years. So if you just excluded one that you've moved out of and you took it, you have to wait a minimum of 2 years before you'll sell that to be eligible again for the 1030.
Okay, so it doesn't matter if I've had multiple properties that I've owned for a long time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you can only do the primary exclusion once every 2 years.
Can I give you a quick example on that?
Yes.
I had a client that had you could call it a second home, it was legitimately a cabin, that they spent they spent enough time up there that the days requirement were that it qualified for a primary residence. They wanted to sell it. He didn't realize he could call it a primary residence. It was his recreational property, right?
Yeah.
In fact, he almost didn't do it because he thought it was morally wrong.
Okay.
He's like, that can't be right. Tie this together. He was talking to me about selling the house he did live in, and he wanted to sell the condo or the cabin. Long story short, he sold the cabin and had to wait that 2 years before he closed on the sale of the home that he lived in, so he could exempt both of them. But he had loaned them both the cabin since the 1980s. He'd owned it for a long time. And he was able to get the exclusion on both just because he waited the time period of the 2 years.
You gotta wait that two-year period.
Got it.
Perfect. Yeah, let's talk about second homes really quick. So second homes, actually, you could 1031 it. So he turned into the primary exclusion, which if you can, you want to do. But let's say you can't, you only live in it. There's a couple of rules here. Number one, if you have a second home, it's a vacation home. As long as you've owned it for at least 2 years and you've rented it out at least, gonna blow your mind, only 2 weeks a year. You have to rent it out at least 14 days a year. And then you can only live in it yourself 2 weeks or 10% of the days you rent it out for, whichever is greater. It's now eligible for a 1031. Because technically, what is it at that point? It's really rental. Yeah. I have a home in Florida right now. I live in it 3 weeks out of the year, but I am renting it out the rest of the time. So it's technically, that's an investment.
And I get to enjoy it too.
It was good having you down this year. Yes.
Is that 14 consecutive or
No,
cumulative?
cumulative. Yep. Same thing. 14, you have to rent it at least 14 days. You cannot live in it yourself more than 14 days or 10%. So if I want to live in it 21 days, I have to rent it out for at least 210 days of the year. Or like in my case, my business actually rented it from me for 2 of those 3 weeks. And so I'm still technically at the 1 week mark.
We're talking about bringing some of our real estate partners there next.
Yeah. Yep. That'll be fun. That'll be fun. Yeah, I like to, January and February is my favorite time to be down there, except it was cold this year.
No, I was there when it was 86.
You got the perfect
I got
time.
the good week.
You got the good time. Okay, very good. Let's keep going on this one. Okay, so like for like, what does like for like mean? Does that mean you have to sell a commercial and you buy commercial, agriculture for agriculture? What does that mean? 10 unit for 10 units?
Investment for
Investment
investment.
for investment.
Real estate.
What are you saying? Like it's really broad? These guys,
Yeah, like you could sell one of your invested properties that was just single family home, purchase
like commercial?
commercial.
You sure on that?
Yes,
Yes, stand strong, stand strong.
I'm sure.
Anybody want to disprove that? You'd be wrong if you do, because she's correct. 100%.
I'm like, I had it before.
Yes. Okay.
You did it wrong.
Hopefully it wasn't illegal.
That's another good talking point though, because most people misunderstand that. Oh, I sold a duplex, I gotta buy a duplex, or I sold
Yeah.
a single family, I gotta buy a single.
I had a conversation with a guy like 2 weeks ago. He's like, well, can I buy a commercial? Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can.
Like for like means real estate for real estate located in the United States or one of its territories. So I can't sell a property here in Utah and then go buy something in France. Okay, but I can buy something here in Utah. Can I buy something in Oklahoma? No, we don't want them to. We want to buy here, but yes, you can. You can be eligible for 1031. Okay, as long as the 2 properties are in the United States. Okay, like for like. Again, keep that in mind. I mean, so many agents don't understand this. I'll ask this question. So good job, by the way. I've had lots. Yeah, that means you got it. If you sell an apartment, you got to buy an apartment.
This is a smart bunch in this room.
I'm impressed. It really is. They were, you guys. I'm not blowing smoke up. He's correct. Jeff is correct. It's just the questions I get asked and the answers I get so many times. It's like, yeah, doesn't surprise me. All right. Like for like, investment for investment. Now let's talk about time periods, but I'm going to start from the very beginning. All right. And this starts at the listing appointment. I've had agents that they complain, listing appointment. Okay. They complain because the client never told them we were doing a 1031 until just before closing, and then they had to go scramble for all the paperwork. Okay. My response is you guys are the professionals. Okay. You are doing a listing presentation on an investment property. Okay. You should have a question in there that says what?
What do you intend to do?
Yep. There should be something about a 1031. Okay. Because you don't want to sell the property and then they find out they could have done a 1031. And then what are they thinking? My agent never brought that up. Are they going to think they're the dumbhead? No, my agent. Okay. You guys, again, are the professional. Okay. So number one, you're in the listing appointment. Make sure you ask that. Okay. And then you guys have one responsibility as a real estate agent. Okay. Now, is it your responsibility to know everything about a 1031? Is it your responsibility to educate your client as a 1031? In fact, for purposes of this class, I have to tell you, it's not your responsibility. You need to say, go talk to a 1031 expert, just like you would, if they were asking you advice about taxes, you would say, yeah. And as lenders, we would appreciate if they're asking you lending questions and interest rates, you say, please talk to your lender. Because sometimes agents think they're doing a favor, but then when I have a client and they're like, but my agent said this, now I'm fighting an uphill battle. And how do you say, yeah, the agent doesn't know what they're talking about, or that, that's right. That was
like that.
Just like that.
Yeah. or that was correct 2 months ago or 6 years ago, but that's not the case right now. Okay. So as an agent, you have really a couple of key responsibilities, and we're going to talk about these right here. So if you haven't been paying attention, now's the time I want you to really know what we're talking about. Okay, number one, check with them, make sure it's okay. And then you get them with a QI. Get them with a QI. And I'm going to put a 1 here. When I say QI, what do I mean? Qualified intermediary. Who is a qualified intermediary? Is it a title company? Is it the lender? Okay, it's definitely not your lender, definitely not the real estate agent. Okay, it can be an attorney and it could be an actual company like First American has First American Title under their umbrella. They also have what's called First American Exchange. Okay, anybody wants that contact information, just shoot an email to Debbie. She can get that to you. Okay, if you don't have that, I can send it to you. Okay. Any title company is going to know who to use. Okay, and some title companies do both. A lot of them don't, but they'll have somebody that they can. Okay. So if you'll ask them up front, you get them with the QI, because guess what? You sell that house without getting them a QI. Can they go back and hurry fill out paperwork? The answer is absolutely not. Okay. Number two, you get the listing, you get them with a QI, you're going to put this property on the MLS. What do you need to do? Disclose. Okay. And all you're going to disclose is what? Property being sold as a 1031. Okay. And then on the purchase contract, you're going to have an addendum. That's your use the addendum. That is what? Okay. Use the 1031 addendum. Okay.
Or I'm just going to add this to it. My attorney that does the 1031 exchange has hit their own particular language that they would prefer. And we'll talk about reverse mortgages, but both on traditional 1031 exchange and reverse mortgages, they just like to see their language that they can amend or whatever.
Okay. Okay. So the language I always say to put in the addendum, if you don't use it, is, property being sold as a 1031, buyer to cooperate at no cost to them. How close is that to the language they put?
There just has some additional language. It's a little bit longer, but that's a state approved form for us as realtors. So the UAR form is the one you should use, that language. It's already been approved by attorneys, right? But we can't really write contract language, right? I mean, technically we write addendums all the time, but when it comes to this, if it's coming from that attorney, it would supersede that if it's a requirement to work with them.
Okay, this is super important. Everybody understands that. Okay, real estate forms, as a real estate agent, you have to use the real estate forms. Okay, you can like addendums, you can modify them, but you can't come up with your own addendum. This form you can use, you can't use as an agent. You cannot be the in between the attorney and the client. Okay, but the attorney can give it to the client, who can give it to you. Okay, make sense? A little bit of a distinction there, so just be careful. Okay, good. Okay, you use the 1031 addendum. You disclose it on MLS. Okay, and you do all these, you're pretty darn safe. Okay, because your QI is going to help them. Now, we got some timing that I want to talk about as well, but make sure you get it. So if you get nothing else out of today's class, get them with a QI, disclose it on the MLS, make sure it's on the rep sheet. All right, and then we'll talk about the time periods. All right, and let's talk about those right now. Okay, before I do that, if I sell one property, does that mean I can only buy one property, or can I sell one and buy 3 or 4 or 10 or whatever? Okay. Can I sell, and I'm just going to use easy numbers again. Can I sell an apartment complex for $1 million, and can I go buy 10 condos for 10 condos at 100,000 each? Can I do that? I can. Okay, perfect. Okay. Can I sell 10 properties and buy one with a 1031? Absolutely. But just remember the time frames. Okay, if I'm selling multiple properties, the time frame starts when I sell the first property. Okay, if I'm selling one and I'm buying multiple properties, all the time frames must be concluded by the time the last one is bought. So keep that in mind. All right.
That's from data recording, right?
Mm-hmm. Everything's based on recording. Okay, very good. Okay, so you've met with the client, you did the listing appointment, you've asked if they're doing a 1031, they say they have. You say, okay, let's get you with the QI, you put it on the MLS, you've listed it, you get an offer under contract, and you've got the 1031 addendum going or language that is acceptable. You now sell the property. Okay, who here has sold the 1031? Okay. Are you listed as the seller on the 1031? Okay. You're the seller on behalf of the 1031 exchange. Okay, so that paperwork's got to be there. All right. Okay, so now you've helped your client sell the house. So your next step is you need to go identify a new property. Okay. Now, is it 45, 60, or 90 days that you have to identify?
45, that's what we decide.
Okay, it's 45. Okay. And is that calendar or business days?
Oh,
Are you sure? You're 100% right, though. It's calendar days. It's not business days. Please do not count business days. All right. So what that means is within 45 days of selling the home, you must have identified a property. Now, do you have to have it under contract to identify? The answer is no. You don't have to have it under contract. You just have to identify it, meaning you have to have the address or the tax ID number, and you're going to get with your QI and you're going to fill out a form. That's how you're going to identify it. You don't have to go on some IRS website or whatever. You're going to identify that with your QI. Okay? You have 45 days to identify. Now, what if I'm selling $1 million property? I'm going to Oklahoma and I'm buying 10 condos for $100,000 each. I can only identify up to how many properties? Is it only 3? Is it? There's actually 3 rules. Okay, the first rule is 3, and that's the rule everybody's familiar with. Okay, you can identify up to 3 properties within that 45 days. Now, but what if I need to exceed that? What if I want to buy more properties?
The combined total can't add up to more than double.
Yes, 100% right there. You got it. Okay. The
He
second
never
rule.
buys properties, he doesn't know.
I'm a good guesser.
No, you hit that perfect, and very few people know that. So good job. You can buy you can identify unlimited properties as long as the value does not exceed 200% of the property that you sold. Okay. There's a third rule that says you can actually go over the 200%, but then you have to basically buy all the properties, and that's a tough one to do. So that means if I sell a property for $1 million, how many $100,000 units can I identify? 20. Yep, up to 20. Okay. Be careful you don't go $1 over, because that could cause problems. All right.
So you're not necessarily buying all of those properties, you're just.
You're identifying. That's all you're doing. You're just identifying. You don't have to be under contract. You don't have to buy them, but you do need to identify before that 45 days are up. Okay. So let's say that 45-day marks, from the time you sell to the 45 days, let's say that falls on a Saturday or Sunday. Now the IRS, with our personal taxes, they're due most years, April 15th, right? And if that falls on a Saturday or Sunday, then taxes are due on the 16th or 17th, that first Monday following. What do you think it is for the 45 days? Do you think you get rolled over to that next Monday? I got a sure?
I'd say no.
I got a no. Who are we going to go with? It's a no. It's a no. So you got to know this. If that day falls on a Saturday or Sunday, you got to have that identified before, okay? Because your QI is probably not going to be open, right? We good on that?
Okay, so you're doing all this through the QI.
Mm-hmm. That's why it's so important. That's why your job is get them with the QI. But you've got to know this 45 days because you've got to be out looking. They can't go take 46 days and say, oh, okay, let's go identify now. Because guess what just happened?
They literally will have a form they want you to use to put the properties on. You can't just email them or text them and say, here's my properties. They're going to have their protocol. Mm-hmm.
Yep. This form you'll fill out and just sign it. Okay. Very good. Yes.
Question. Say if you're exchanging a value of $100,000 property and you're rolling it, is it the next value total value or down? Like I could put two $50,000 or $50,000 on 2 different properties.
Okay, good question. Let me just clarify something really quick because I get a lot of questions on this. It's value, it's sales price to purchase price. Okay, because I'll have people that are thinking, hey, wait a second. I'm selling for $500,000, but I've got a mortgage of $400,000, so I'm getting $100,000. So I only have to go buy $100,000, and that's not the case. It's always sales price to purchase price. So if I'm selling something for $500,000, I got to go buy something for $500,000, or I got to go buy 2 units at $250 each, or 1 at $400, 1 at $100. So the cumulative purchase price equal to or greater. I can buy less. Let's say I sell something for $500,000. And I buy something for $400,000. I can do it. It's still an eligible exchange, but guess what's going to happen on that $100,000 I take home? You get taxed on it. Okay? Why would I want to do that?
Love the property.
Yes, exactly. You know what? There's not a property at $501,000 that I want, but the perfect house comes in at $400,000.
Or you might just want to retain some liquidity.
That was my second one. Yep. The next part is, we just may want to pull some cash out, and you can do that, and it's fine. It's just a partial taxation.
So you can't use it for a down payment.
No, absolutely. You're using that for the down payment.
Okay,
So
that
the-
was my question. If I could use it for a down payment on a more expensive property.
Absolutely. Yep. And that's
Okay.
what you're using. Yeah. A lot of people that we're doing these 1031s for, I mean, it goes to the down payment. Absolutely. Great question there. Good. Okay. Sorry, it took me a second there to understand that question. Okay. So you've identified, and then the next thing is you must purchase the replacement property within,
180.
I heard 90. It's 90. Okay. Got 90 days. No, 180. Excuse me. 180 days. Okay, now we had 6 months that was brought up earlier. Please don't use the 6 month because why? Technically, 6 months could be 181 days. Okay,
So that's once again, 180s, after 180 days after.
So,
yeah,
is it sell or is it after you identify?
so,
Okay, it's all, it's everything starts day 0 is the sell. Okay, so go from there. Do not think, okay, I identified within 45 days and now I got 180 days to buy. Nope. Okay, it's all from the sell. Let's go back to identification really quick. Let's say you identify 3 properties and they all fall out. You're not able to get any of them under contract. At that point, what do you do? If you're past the 45 days, your client's is paying taxes. Okay. If you're before the 45 days, what do you do? Go talk to your QI and see if they'll let you swap out some papers. Okay, because they probably will.
okay, so if they fall through, and it's past the 45, you can't really identify them.
45 days is done. You can't
It has to
identify.
be one of those.
It has to be one of those. So what he's saying is if you can't get them in this competitive market or whatever, possibly gonna talk to the intermediary, but possibly you could swap or exchange. Those aren't available, but it has to be before the 45.
As long as you're with them the 45 days. They might let you pull out a paper. and-
You can't identify on day 46. It's
Yeah.
done.
So you don't have to close on them yet, that way you just have to have them.
You just have to
under
identify.
contract.
Yep. Nope, not under contract.
No, the 45 days is part of the 180. They run together. So, but it's identify is the term. You just have to identify and then you get it under contract 2 months later, whatever.
But you have to close on one of those.
Within the 180.
Okay.
Now, there's also what's called the reverse exchange, and that is, I'm not gonna go deep into it, but just, you can buy the property before you sell, okay? But remember this, the things you need to know is number 1, get with your QI. You can't just go buy the property and then go, hey, I'm gonna sell this one, let's go do the paperwork and transfer that over. Get with your QI first, get all the paperwork done when you buy the replacement property. And then but you need the cash to cover it beforehand. Keep that in mind, okay? All right, so purchase is 180 days. Are there any exceptions to that 180 days? 180 days falls on a Saturday. Do you have till the following Monday? You are correct. No. Idiot lender. True story. Had a loan officer come apply to me because he'd gotten fired by his bank that he worked for.
Wasn't needed.
That's how we got Debbie here. No, just kidding. No. Had a client, 1031 exchange on day 179. They had never checked if the home was in a flood zone. Okay. Day 179, they found out they're in a flood zone. So guess what they got to add? Flood insurance. Now here's the problem. Here's the stupid thing with our industry. It's a good thing, but it's a bad thing. Anytime we add a legitimate fee, what do we have to send out? We have to send out a new loan estimate to show that and then wait 3 days. And that was found out on day 179. And so now that bank has a $38,000 lawsuit against him because the client is now paying taxes. And these are things that he could have avoided. So anyway, be very careful of that. Builder, you're doing new construction. Builder gets delayed. Any exceptions there? You better go find a way to get your butt on title with a home that's not done yet. So, because if you don't go on title within those 180 days, there is only one exception, and that is a naturally declared federal disaster. You're in Galveston, Texas, several years back, under 10 feet of water, and they declare it a federal disaster. Yeah, you'll probably get some extra time. But I got asked, this is the pandemic, COVID, and the answer to that is there's no exceptions at that. Okay, so keep that in mind. Okay, so timing, purchase. Okay, commercial, residential, that's the cool thing. As long as if it's held for investment purposes, and it's real estate, it is eligible for a 1031. Now, stocks and bonds, those deal with capital gains, right? You sell a stock, that gain is called a capital gain, but that is not eligible for the 1031. It's only real estate, okay? Builders and flips. Are we on time? Oh. This just happened again.
Okay, no
Okay.
more questions. Everybody be quiet.
Okay, we're going into zip mode here. Okay. Fourth keyword is going to be, let's go commercial. Fourth keyword is commercial. And then you got to stay with me 10 more minutes to get that fifth and final keyword. Okay. As long as it's resident, as long as it's real estate, that's fine. Okay,
I
builders
didn't
and
catch that
flipping.
keyword, sorry.
Commercial. Commercial is the fourth keyword. Commercial. Okay. Yeah, builders, it's just written into the code. If you build a home, you cannot then go and you sell it. It's not eligible for a 1031. You're going to have to pay taxes on those profits. Flips. Okay, if you purchase the property with the intention to fix it up and sell it, it is not eligible for a 1031, right? And then it really comes down to, it's all about intention. Now we have timing, okay? The IRS does not give a minimum amount of time you must hold on to the property. And they don't say whether you need to hold on to it for a year, 2 years, 5 years. It's not specified, but if you talk to most accountants, most tax professionals, they're going to say what? 1 year. They're going to tell you to hold on to the property at least a year before you try to do the 1031. Okay. The same entity that sells must be the same entity that buys. We've ran into some issues because we've had a commercial space. Okay, we're good. Okay, we've had a commercial space that was held through an LLC, and then they sold the property on a 1031, and then they came to us for a residential loan. Can we lend to LLCs? We cannot. Okay, so they had to go get a commercial loan in that case. There are some cases if they own 100%, that's possible. Had another client, his dad had left some land for his sister. For whatever reason, he put the property in the son's name and to hold on to it until he could, give it to his sister. And so this last year, he actually sold the property in his name, did a 1031, called up his sister and said, hey, I got this money sitting at title. You need to go buy a new property with the 1031 money so you don't have to pay taxes. And unfortunately, yeah, that doesn't work. What's that?
He needs to. Yeah. Would he be able to have her on there and then take himself off?
He should have done, yeah. He should have either deeded her on beforehand and not like the day before, but with enough time before, or he should have went and bought it himself and then deed her
I'm
on.
talking about the new property.
Yeah.
Can you bring her on with the new property?
He would need to buy it himself to keep it the same,
Right.
and then he could deed her on after he closed. Yeah.
There's workarounds.
Yeah, there's workarounds, but be aware of that. Okay. Buy equal to or greater. We've already talked about that. You can buy less than, we're talking value for value, purchase price, sales price minus, and your sales price and purchase price, make sure they're equal or greater. You can go less, but you will pay taxes on any difference. Don't touch any of the money. Any money that you touch becomes taxable. Now, working with real estate agents is nice because you'll either have them put it in your trust account or you have them send it to a title company. Okay, the seller doesn't touch, but let's say there's no real estate agent involved and two people, they know each other or whatever. Buyer writes out a $10,000 earnest money check and gives it to the seller. That IRS is considered that earned money now, and that 10,000 can be taxed on. Okay. Another thing to be aware of is at closing, when we're dealing with investment properties, we're going to have tenants, and those tenants are going to have prorated rents, and they're going to have security deposits. Make sure as a seller, you do not do a credit at closing you just pull out your checkbook and you write it out. If you do that credit through the settlement statements, guess what? IRS is going to say, hey, you're giving away our money and therefore we want to be taxed. Okay, very good. Safety. Who holds your money? The intermediary does. What if that intermediary goes bankrupt? Or they decide to take an extended stay for the next 20 years to the Cayman Islands and you never see them again? Okay, it could be a big problem. So make sure you're going with somebody reputable. Make sure that you know your money's there. Okay, let's say you do the 1031 exchange, you sell the property, they're holding on to all your money, and you decide, you know what, never mind, I don't want to do a 1031, I want my money. Can they just release the money to you right there? 180 days. Yep, that's what they told me. They'll hold on to your money for 180 days. And then when that 180 days is up, they'll release it. So make sure that your clients understand the ramifications. Okay. Okay.
You're good on time. It's only 12.
Yep, I got,
6 minutes.
I was gonna get you out of here at 12:40.
Oh,
Because
okay.
we have the 2 10
Okay.
seated.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Good. So I have got.
Usually don't go by seating time.
All right, so let's go questions and scenarios. I always get some questions at this point.
How about
Does anybody have anything
duplexes?
they'd like?
How about duplexes? Say I have a duplex and I'm living in one, renting the other one out, and I want to sell it and I want to do a 1031 exchange.
Okay, this is a really good question. Okay, so we're actually dealing with both now at this point. Okay, you've got a duplex, you've lived in the one unit for 2 of the last 5 years, you've rented it out. They're actually qualified for both. It's almost as if you treat it like 2 separate transactions. The unit that you live in is going to be a primary exclusion. So you're going to figure out what your gains are on that, and the primary exclusion will apply to that. And then the other unit, and whether it's a 3-plex, 4-plex, whatever, then those other units will be 1031s. So really good question there. Yep, and that is tricky stuff, and that's get a very good accountant at that point. So good. Any other questions or scenarios? Okay.
There's no way you can get like an extension or anything like that on those timers. Like there's nothing you can do, like times of the times.
Outside of a federally declared natural
That's the
disaster.
only thing.
Yep. Yeah.
It's hard and fast, man.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. There's no leeway. It's just you conform or you pay taxes.
Well, it's the same thing on the purchase too, right? If it's not part of the contract, if that language isn't in the contract and you close and they say, oh, I want to do a 1031 exchange, I got 45 days, right? It's done at closing because it wasn't part of the transaction.
Yep.
And then there isn't, as far as ramifications, there is no other ramification if you don't find, like you find your likes, you don't close, it just 1031 goes away and
Yep.
money's released and you pay the tax.
Yep. You got it.
After the time. limits expire.
Yeah,
Yep.
so, but there's no other ramifications.
Yep. You've got to identify with that
So
43
ideal
days.
situation, you want them to be ready to go under contract with that other one before you even sell the first.
In this market, that's a great idea. You got a month and a half. And I got a lot of buyers that have been 3 months looking and putting in offers.
Well, and here's what generally happens in this market. You do a 1031 exchange, your identification period is, you're not gonna take this 180 days, you're gonna identify and close.
Mhm.
So you're gonna close probably within the 45 days, within your identification, because of the timing of the market, right? You can't identify that property and hope it's gonna be there for the next 6 months.
And then have everything set to where you're closing on this one and closing on this one within days.
Yeah, I mean, well, you got 45 days to identify, so you close and you go shop and you see something, you're putting an offer on it, you're identifying and going under contract and closing all at the same time.
My advice is, when you list that property, you go start looking.
We started looking, find it, go under contract.
That's
It's a good
Yeah.
job.
Like be under contract on that one already. It's identified, you're under contract.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's why he mentioned the reverse 1031 exchange for, which he's not gonna go into. It is possible for your investors to go and buy the replacement property first, identify that they're participating in a reverse 1031 exchange, and then decide what in my portfolio am I gonna sell?
That's even better.
So you're identifying your own properties, and then you
Right.
know that you can sell. It's the same timelines too.
Yep.
45
It's
again.
reversed.
Huh.
Yep. You
Hey,
can't.
James,
Yes.
yeah, I have a comment. Tell me if this is true or not. I was in a 1031 situation where I thought I could identify a development, like a new housing development. And then I found out that, no, it's got to be a specific lot and a specific parcel. Is that correct?
That is 100% correct. It's a specific address, specific tax ID for the one parcel that you are buying. That is correct. Yep.
Looks like there's some down this now.
I have a primary exclusion question.
Yes.
So for a single person, it's 250, and then for a couple, it's 500. Is there any schedule for that to go up? Or is it just kind of like, because the housing prices are just going up and up and up. Pretty soon that primary exclusion is going to be cut off and you're just going to be out of luck for, the rest of it.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. But no, there's nothing that I've seen that, like our loan amounts go up every year. That 215,500 has been in place for several years. And I've heard and seen nothing about raising that. Really good question there. Good. There's some chats. Oh yeah. Keyword number 5 is going to be Debbie. Keyword number 5 is Debbie, and you got to spell it right.
Yeah.
Or you don't get
Unlike
just kidding.
I tell you, my source papers, he literally served me papers. Best story ever.
Okay, so
Just one last dig.
yeah. So David asked, the proceeds from the purchase go to the QI, correct? Yes. Any money when you sell, the QI will hold on to that money. And then they will transfer it to title when you buy the house. And just one little thing to keep in mind is they do charge fees somewhere around $750 typically. And then they take that out when they distribute the funds. I had a client that was thinking they were getting $47,000 to apply to the down payment, but when the money arrived, it was $46,250. Not a big deal, but the client had to put a little bit more money down, so just keep that in mind. So
I think we've got more.
okay. Yeah, as long as you got 4 of the 5, I don't even remember what they are, but as long as you got 4 of the 5, you're good. So yeah, that's why I have Debbie. Okay.
Do you spell Debbie Debbie?
Yes, I do.
I was actually kidding. We'll accept DEB.
I'm gonna get a picture.
Oh, very good. And I was gonna give Debbie a few minutes. So
What about D-Money or?
D-Money will take one. Yeah, Debbie, go ahead.
Thank you. All right, you guys, let's give James a big round of applause. He's amazing, right? Yeah, he taught me everything I know. So, yeah, I've met most everybody here, but there's some new people on Zoom that I haven't met yet. So I'll just talk a little bit about our company. James is the branch manager at Security Home Mortgage in Lehigh, where I work. And obviously he's really passionate about real estate. He was a real estate agent for, was it 8 years?
Something like that.
8 years, and then also became a lender. So he became a self-made millionaire through real estate, and he loves both sides of the industry, as you can tell. And he's really knowledgeable about all of the aspects. And so he's actually, if you guys want some more education, we are all about education. So we have a whole bunch of other CE classes, and he is also, we've created some educational classes for real estate agents to get your income up to $250,000 a year with the techniques that he used himself to do that. So it's training on like mindsets, systems, habits, strategies, and the actual marketing tools that he used to get you there. So if you guys want to chat about that, we have a lot of options there to help you guys grow your business or just expand your education. At Security Home Mortgage, we do in-house everything. So I know everyone on my team, right? It's just so fast and efficient. We've got the in-house underwriting, so we get things back really fast. On both of my deals going on right now, I got my appraisals back in 2 days. So we can close, if you guys get us someone and you need that pre-approval done like this same day, happens all the time. We're happy to do that. With that, we can usually close them in 21 days, but we also have a fully underwritten process called the Security Plus program, where we can close them in 10 days, and we do guarantee to close them. So their earnest money is guaranteed. It's subject only to title and appraisal at that point in time. So if you guys want to talk about that, feel free to call me about that as well. And again, we're all about the education. So not just for our referral partners, like our real estate agents, but also for your SOI. So I've done a couple of first-time homebuyer classes here with some of your agents, and that's really fun for me. Again, I love to teach and educate because they come and they're like, oh, I just didn't know. I didn't know I could get in that soon. So once they have that education, they can start working towards that goal a whole lot faster. But also we have an investment class specifically for SOI as well. It's nothing like the 1031 exchange, but it does talk to them about the different strategies and techniques to get in. So like if you have somebody that's super defeated right now, they're like, I don't make $32 an hour. I can't even get into a starter home anymore at $500,000. Am I going to have to leave Utah? I've actually heard that from people. I'm like, we don't want our kids to be leaving Utah. So let's find the way, right? You've got the co-signers as parents as the obvious first go-to option. But again, get a buddy, get an investment partner. You might have to live with them for a year, but so what? At least you're in the game and you're getting there. We can have, like I said, up to 4 people on the loan working on doing that together, or you can have 4 couples if you want a lot of income there. So we can talk about all of those things. So we have that investment class. We can do that once a month for your SOI. We can even combine that with this stuff with my financial advisor. You're going to do some classes with him where he teaches your home buyers, your SOI.
Tell them we have an event coming up.
We do have it coming up in April. It is scheduled for sure. Okay.
Yeah.
So I have a financial advisor partner that I work with, and some of you came to his class I brought here, and he has a whole system to show them if they are going to make it through retirement or not. And if they're not in that green or blue area, how real estate can get them there. And so again, you're going to have a repeat client. He's going to show them in black and white and numbers what real estate investing can do for them and help them in their retirement to make sure that they have that ability to retire. And then you're going to have a repeat client every 1 to 2 years with that system. So, and that's what I like to teach too. I like this strategy. So I'm going to talk about the loan side of things, not the 1031 exchange with the taxes, but the requirements for lending for investment properties. So you guys, almost all of you have one of my matrices. If you don't, they're over here. It talks about, so the first time home buyers can get in for 3%. If you're not a first time, it's 5%. It's got the, yeah, we grab that for me. All the basic loan knowledge. Is right here, and I'm pretty sure James designed this too, right? He's kind of a genius. I do love working with him. So yeah, we like to hand out these matrices so that you guys have all of the basic loan information here. So like VA 0 down, right? That's very helpful for you. And also now there's no limit on that. And it has the upfront funding fees, and the fact that there are no upfront funding fees if you have 10% disability. I actually just did that pre-approval for someone right now.
Credit score.
The credit, what the credit score?
No credit score for VA.
Yeah, so well that doesn't.
But like the VA doesn't.
Right, that's not on here. This is just the basic stuff. If you want to go into more detail, we do recommend you call your lender, but it's got the conforming loan limits on here and things like that. So if you guys, there's a bunch back there in the corner if you don't have one, but for investment strategies, since that goes with what we're talking about today, there's only one way to get in for 5% investment. We have to have a minimum of 15% down. You are obviously going to get a better rate at 20 and a better still at 25. Second home, like James mentioned a second home a little bit. Do you guys know what the difference is between a second home and an investment property? How like we view that as a lender? So you have to live in the second home for at least 14 days out of the year. So that's something that like James looks at for his Florida property and his Bear Lake property. Like he's going to live there for 3 weeks out of the year and Airbnb it out the rest of the time.
Isn't that a requirement too? It has to kind of be in a destination that makes sense. You can't like live in Draper and buy the one down the street as a second home.
Correct. That was going to be my second question. If you guys know the other requirements. So it's not a specific mileage amount. There are some mileage amounts that they're looking at, but it just has to make sense. Yeah, it can't be right down the road because you want your kid to live next to you. So it has to make sense. But so that could count for the second home. So you can get into a property for the 10% down if that's what you're going to be doing with it. Otherwise, you're looking at 15 or 20 or 25 for the investment. But my favorite strategy, the one I'm currently working on, is turning your primary, after you've been there for a year, you can turn that into an investment property. You can pull out like a HELOC or a cash out refi, and you can buy the new primary residence for as little as the 5% down. And then if you get a renter in there and you get the 12-month contract, we can actually use the rental income to offset your liabilities up to 75%. So that income is going to lower your DTI and help you get a bigger purchase price on the new primary residence. So anyway, we've got a lot of fun things we can talk about with investments. It's my new favorite passion. And so I was really glad James was able to come here today and chat with you guys and get you educated on it.
Awesome. Thanks, Debbie. Guys, Debbie is amazing. She's worked with a lot of our agents on our team. Reach out to her, at least have a conversation, go to lunch, build a relationship there. I want to bring up one other thing. Well, two things. For you guys that are on Zoom, we do classes like this every week here in my office, 11 a.m. If you want to be added to our invite list, if you're not already on the team, drop your email in the chat and we'll make sure we invite you to future classes like this. But one thing that, I mean, we ran out of time. There's so much more that we could talk about. So reach out to Debbie more about 1031 exchanges, but I'm always telling you guys, these are talking points with your clients, okay? It's very, very important because I'll give you an example based on 1031 exchange. Some people, we talk about the step-up basis, right? Some people think, okay, I'm going to add my daughter on title to my property. So if something happens to me, it's already taken care of, it stays in the family, and my daughter will own the home. But that bypasses that inheritance process. And guess what? That daughter, now her cost basis is what mom's was. That's a big deal. If they transfer the property prior to their death and the owner still owns it, they're on title to the original cost step-up basis. So make sure that they talk to the right people, the right professionals that can guide them to set things up properly. Okay, so that's all we got. We're gonna stick around here and have lunch. You guys on Zoom, go make a sandwich.
Jeff, quick question.
Terry.
I tried to send something to Debbie, but it bounced back. Can I get her email address again?
Yeah, go ahead.
Should we just type
Yeah, it's in the chat there, Terry. If you scroll up, dhart@shmloans.com. HART, DHART.
Oh, it's SHM. Okay, I got it.
First security home mortgage.
Yep, security home mortgage
Got it.
loans.
Okay. Figure it
Awesome.
out. Thanks.
Thanks, guys. Make sure you send that email to Debbie so you can get your CE credit if you're in Utah, and we'll see you later.
I'm impressed. Nope. I've never known an agent know that what you just said there. Scroll down. Yeah, that's impressive.
What am I scrolling? Oh,
How
was
many
it
doors do you have? You've been doing this.
40 something?
Hey, Jeff, we need to put our license number on there, right?
Debbie's email.
That's what the email's for. Email that to Debbie.
Yeah.
Then Debbie, you've got the roster?
I do.
Sometimes we put it in the chat, but in this case, Debbie's going to receive your email with your license number, and she'll have your email, of course, and then she can help take care of that.
Thank you.
It's true, guys.
All right, see you guys.
So the rest will
Hey,
follow.
move over here.